Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to introduce you to Pat Murphy, who is running in Iowa's District 1. This is another one where you have a real progressive who's running against the establishment-supported, corporate-backed Democrat. And so remember, we've got this two-pronged political revolution going on here. We have that which is happening in the country and also that which is happening within the Democratic Party. Let me introduce you to a gentleman who spent 25 years in the state legislature in the state of Iowa, including 4 years as the Speaker of the House there. Pat Murphy. Hi, how are you?
Thanks, Marianne. It's nice to be on here today.
Thank you so much. Now, I know LGBT equality, labor and income issues, fair pay, raising the minimum wage, Social Security, supporting Medicare for all, environment, climate change. Obviously, you're the real progressive in this race. Tell us, obviously, you spent 25 years in the House in Iowa. What's the fire in your belly taking this forward? What do you need from progressives around the country? What is your sense of what's happening in the country? Tell me what's on your mind.
Well, the big reason I'm running is I really do believe I can make a difference. In the 25 years, 26 years that I was in the Iowa legislature, I really did believe I could make a difference. When I was Speaker of the House, we were able to do a lot of progressive things like raising the minimum wage. And that was the first bill we did when we took control. But we didn't stop there. We did universal preschool for 4-year-olds. We have 20,000 children in the state of Iowa now that get quality preschool, and we spend $69 million a year on just those 4-year-olds, giving them universal preschool, and it's available to everybody in the state of Iowa. But along with that, we kept a focus on education. Teacher pay had actually dipped to 42nd in the nation in Iowa, and Iowa's noted for its education, but it's going to be pretty hard to keep teachers. So we decided to raise the pay over a 4-year period so we could make sure that we got back up to the national average, which we did. But along with those things, we did some other things as well. We raised the cigarette tax $1. We took all of that money and we dumped it into a healthcare fund. And that healthcare fund we used for Medicaid expansion, and we used it for healthcare expansion through what we call our Healthy and Well Kids of Iowa, which is called Hawkeye. It's the Hawkeye State because the University of Iowa Hawkeyes, and that's how it got its name. But the Healthy and Well Kids program and the Medicaid expansion ended up including 63,000 children, and CMS estimated that we had about 60,000 children that didn't have access to health insurance. And we were able to take care of pretty much 99% between 99 and 100% of all the children in the state of Iowa that didn't have access to health care. In addition to those things, though, too, we also made sure that we protected women's rights. We expanded family planning services while I was Speaker. We made sure that we didn't have any ridiculous debates about restricting women's access to health care. And we also expanded stem cell research. And here's why that's so important. This was a very emotional debate that was created by the Republicans, and they made it an abortion issue. But stem cell research here in Iowa has led the University of Iowa to looking at reversing blindness for people with macular degeneration. And they're actually looking at reversing blindness and hearing loss based on the legislation we passed back in 2007. And then we also did an LGBT civil rights bill in 2007, and we were able to get a little bit of bipartisan support on that bill. So we were able to do some very progressive things. And probably the thing that we're remembered most for is, here's Iowa in the middle of the country. You have New York on the east end, you have California on the west end, and Iowa became just the third state in the nation to allow marriage equality. And as the Speaker of the House, after that ruling came down on a 7-0 vote by the Iowa Supreme Court, 7-0 in favor of marriage equality, I had to prevent numerous attempts, over a half a dozen attempts at changing the state constitution so that they wouldn't try to put discrimination back into our Constitution. And I made a very strong statement that day on that ruling, which was, I believe the Constitution is an affirmative document that guarantees us all a set of rights in this country, and that if you change the Constitution to have a negative connotation in it, such as saying, well, you have all these rights, but except for this little instance, I think it fails as a document. And so I decided that the most important thing we could do was preserve this court ruling, and we were able to do that. And I'm very proud of the fact that it is now nationwide throughout the country. But I think that leads to some of the stuff we need to talk about in regards to Congress, because, quite frankly, one of the things that hasn't been addressed with the Supreme Court ruling at the federal level is we do have marriage equality, but now you have couples that are getting married and then they're coming in and wanting to get access to health insurance or housing or other issues, and you have state legislatures across the country now that are trying to put discrimination into laws. And along with that, we need to pass an Equality Act, which the Human Rights Campaign is campaigning for, that just doesn't address employment, but housing and other parts of a person's life as well, so that they have the same rights and conditions of opposite-sex couples as well as for same-sex couples.
That's interesting to me because I assumed that once you were married, those things were de facto.
And see, this is a problem because they're finding out that in some states, couples are starting to run into some of these issues. And see, in Iowa, we don't, because we're one of 18 states that currently has civil rights protections for same-sex couples. But there are other states, and you can take large states such as Texas, but you have border states along Iowa like Missouri or Nebraska where you have no protections. So if you do get married as a same-sex couple in those states, you may get married, but you may want to keep it quiet because you're afraid of what your employer might do in regards to benefits or your employment.
You know, this thing about Iowa is so interesting because Iowa's sort of in the national news right now because of this bill there about the possibility of children under the age of 14 being able to legally handle handguns, which to most of us is just so outrageous. So Iowa seems to be one of those states where you see this enormous dichotomy between some of the most progressive sentiments and some of the least progressive sentiments, which I assume is also some of what you will face in Congress. What's your sense of that? What's your sense of that as an Iowan, and what's your sense of that as an American? What's going on?
Well, I would say that in Iowa, you're correct. We have a very this is a state that's considered a toss-up state every election cycle. And it's sort of weird because we're first in the nation caucuses, but then because we're such a toss-up state, and we do have 6 electoral votes here, so you have everybody pouring into the state here, both in the caucuses for 6 months or a year preceding, but then after that, you also have a bunch of people coming into the state after all the primaries are done, putting people on TV because of it being a toss-up state. So for that reason, we get a lot of attention. But the other part is you're correct. We do have a very progressive state. Iowa allowed the first woman to practice law in the country in our state. We got Brown versus the Board of Education right 78 years before Brown versus the Board of Education. We got it right in the 1800s. We also got right, we have the issue when Iowa was a territorial state and it wasn't a full state yet. And it was in the matter of the man named Ralph, and Ralph was a slave that was brought here by his, at that time considered his owner. And the Iowa Supreme Court ruled that no man could own another man. So we've been very progressive, but the problem we have too is we also have a lot of very conservative folks. And you're right, we do have a lot of legislation. And as the Speaker of the House, I killed a lot of that legislation that would prohibit quite frankly,
total insanity.
One of the questions that was asked on the House floor was, if a 2-year-old wants to handle a gun, there's nothing to prohibit that in the legislation. And the answer to that question was, you're correct. And I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks a 2-year-old should be handling a gun, let alone a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old. And quite frankly, you have to be 16 to drive a license without your parent, and yet we're going to allow 8-year-olds a handgun, and you can do a lot more damage with a handgun than you can with a car.
I'm thrilled that we've had the opportunity to expose you to so many people who agree with that. Are there any sort of final words that you'd like to say? I know your website is patmurphyforcongress.com. Your primary date is June 7th. My hope is that people will support you, that they will send in some dollars to support you, tell all their friends in Iowa to support you. Any final words that you'd like to say about how you're going to just take your fire to the U.S. Congress?
We need to make sure that college education is affordable for every child. And whether they're going to a community college or to a 4-year institution, they shouldn't be racked with tens of thousands of dollars of debt. And so we need to make sure we have people that are going to focus on the real issues of higher education, making it affordable, making sure that 4-year-olds have access to quality preschool, making sure everybody has quality access to health care. But along with that, having that social safety net there through Medicare and Medicaid, as well as the Social Security as well. So I will just tell people what I've been saying on the campaign trail. I've been fighting for working class families for the last 26 years, and that if you give me that chance, I will go to Washington, D.C., and I will continue that fight in the future.
Well, you know what? I believe you. I believe everything that you just said. I know that you will, and I hope that you get a chance to. And I know that I can feel that a lot of people who are exposed to your work would feel the same way. I hope enough of them will be in Iowa, and I wish you the very, very best. And I very much look forward to talking to you again after June 7th when you are the nominee, and making sure that we go on from there onto November and get you into the House. I look forward to that day. It will give me, and I think a lot of people, a very big smile.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Hi, everybody. I am particularly delighted to introduce you to this next candidate. Her name is Diana Hurd, and she's running in New York State. New York, 18th District. Her primary date is June 28th, and her website address is Diana Hurd, D-I-A-N-A Hurd, H-I-R-D.com. She has endorsed Bernie Sanders, and she not only has endorsed Bernie Sanders, but let me tell you why it is so important that this woman go to Congress. She understands economics. This is a non-practicing attorney at this point, non-practicing, but she practiced business law for 15 years. She spent a year and a half on Wall Street, and she spent 3 years as an attorney in the enforcement division of the SEC. So we need Diana Hurd in there because she speaks from experience when she talks about how corrupt the influence of Wall Street is on our political system. Diana Hurd, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell me about your campaign. Tell me about why you're running. What's the fire in your belly? What does your gut tell you, and how can we help?
I'm running because our congressman is not representing us. We know that he's getting money from Wall Street. We know that he's getting money from the big oil and gas companies. And he is voting with the Republicans more than any Democrat in Congress.
Okay, so even right here, and I think this is so important, this is a progressive summit, and once again, this theme keeps coming up, progressives. It's not enough to think, well, if I vote for the Democrat, I'm voting necessarily for the progressive change that we need to have happen. As Diana just said, the current incumbent is a Democrat, but he has voted with the Republicans more than any other Democrat. He has voted against refugees being able to come to this country, the Syrian refugees. He has voted with Wall Street and oil and gas. He's even voted for the XL Keystone pipeline. So I hope you're hearing all kinds of red flags and really making a mental note. Diana Hurd is someone to support. So as I've heard you say, Diana, your opponent gets money from Wall Street, you get Wall Street. What is it you saw when you were there? What did you get? What did you come to understand?
Well, what I understood was that it was a shell game, that when, for example, when an investment bank had a terrible stock that they wanted to get off their books, they would put it in a derivative security, presto magic, get a great rating, and put it in our retirement money market funds. And that is just one example. These things were happening over and over again. When the mortgage fiasco happened, I was not surprised. And I don't think Wall Street was surprised, though they pretended that they were.
Yeah, you probably saw the movie The Big Short.
Of course.
Yeah, it's one of the best. So now you're a volunteer community advocate for the city of Newburgh. You've had a child, and so you are now teaching preschool and children's theater. What is that trajectory? I'm interested in the psychology of that. You went from being a business lawyer to being on Wall Street to working for the SEC to having a child to teaching school to being a community advocate to saying, okay, and I'm going to run for Congress. How did you get onto that track called I'm going to now run for Congress?
Well, what happened was, so I started working with children in our town, and then I realized the kids in the city of Newburgh, which, by the way, is one of the poorest cities in our country. It is called the murder capital of New York State. I thought, okay, I need to help the children in the city of Newburgh.
Right.
So I went over there, I volunteered, I babysat for kids. And what I saw were kids would come and they were hungry. They were hungry every day. Kids came and you could tell that they had elevated lead levels. And I asked around and I saw pictures of apartments peeling paint. Peeling paint, they are breathing lead paint every day from the moment they're in the womb. And as we know from Michigan, this brain damage is not reversible. What happened was I went to our congressman's office and I wanted to get information about housing and what programs are feeding into Newburgh from housing and urban development. And what his staffers told me was that they did not know. And when I asked them to help me, they sent me an email with a link to the HUD website.
Well, that says it all. That says it all, and that's why Americans are angry. That's why Americans want a political revolution. Because if that's not enough to get a congressman's attention, I don't know what is. And of course, part of the corruption of having huge moneyed interests have such undue influence, children don't work, so children don't represent a financial interest. Children don't have these huge lobbyists. That's why they need both citizens who care, and what we need to get now are people in Congress who do understand and do care, particularly care enough to advocate for the rights of children. Clearly, getting the money out of politics, we're not going to solve any of these other problems. Getting the money out of politics is the cancer underneath these other cancers. So this is primary. What are you going to do as a congressperson? What do you think the role of Congress should be now in furthering this conversation and this activism so that we can override Citizens United? What are you going to stand for? What are you going to do?
Well, one example that I've been talking about a lot. So there are government programs which nobody talks about. So, for example, Head Start. In our district, it doesn't come near to serving even the poorest students. So you've got preschoolers sitting at home doing nothing, getting no preschool education, and then going into school to kindergarten, they are already left behind. But you also have working families who are making $40,000 a year, $50,000 a year, who cannot afford to send their kids to preschool. So one of the things that I absolutely want to do is expand Head Start so that it covers the poor kids, but it also covers the middle class kids. And nobody's been talking about that.
Well, you know, Head Start is such an interesting thing. This is a hugely successful program. So they started talking about cutting a hugely successful program when what we should be doing is expanding it. And of course, we should have universal pre-K as well, correct?
Absolutely.
And I think that is another reason why progressive women are so important, because women tend to really make that stand in Congress for such a topic as that. Why did you endorse Bernie Sanders? What does Bernie Sanders stand for that made you come out and endorse him?
Well, first of all, health care. Right. I pay more in health care than my mortgage. Right. Everybody has a right to health care. My mother is on Medicare. The day she got on Medicare was such a relief for her. We know it works, and we need to expand it for everybody.
Right. What do you mainly need? How can we as a progressive audience support you most, Diana?
So what I really need, Sean Patrick Maloney, his claim to fame is fundraising. And he will probably have $3 million or $4 million to go against me.
For a congressional race?
For a congressional race.
Unbelievable. So, and I'm sure a lot of his money is PAC money, super PAC.
Absolutely. Tremendous amount of PAC money, Wall Street money. Somebody on the management committee of Goldman Sachs is a big contributor to his campaign. The law firm which is the biggest law firm representing the oil and gas industry, is a big contributor to his campaign. So for me to get the word out, although we're getting tremendous grassroots support, right? For me to get the word out, it is going to take contributions from individual voters, because I will not go after Wall Street money.
You know, the reason we're doing this summit, Diana, is because a lot of times with progressives, there's this concentration, an important concentration, and I myself have endorsed Bernie. But there's such a concentration sometimes on the presidential election that we forget how important Congress is. It's a co-equal branch. Unless we get more members of the House of Representatives and more members of the Senate who are going to support these things, and no matter who we vote for president, it won't make a difference. And when you see Democrats who stand so firmly with Wall Street as your opponent does, it's so significant. And for everybody listening to know, when a candidate says, I need to get the word out, that means I need to be able to pay for flyers. I need to be able to pay for ads. I mean, it's as simple as that. Otherwise, you can't communicate. So I need to be able to pay for that person who's going to sit on on my site all day and send out emails. And I understand what all of that's about. I wish you the very best. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the progressive audience so that they'll know how important it is? You've got, what could be more significant, what could be more beneficial to the great political revolution we all want to see than for an actual business attorney, someone who has been a business attorney for 15 years, everybody. She spent a year and a half on Wall Street and 3 years in the enforcement division of the SEC. She knows what the game is. She knows all the skeletons in the closet. This woman knows what's truly up. So she doesn't just get up and say, I don't like this. She can speak chapter and verse. She can actually talk in great detail about what's wrong, what's illegal, what's immoral, what's unethical, and how it needs to change. If anybody that is running for Congress this season gives us an opportunity to really get in there into the sinews of Congress and put in people who stand for the kind of values that so many of us are passionate about today, it is this woman, Diana Hurd. So I recommend, I enthuse, I support, and I really hope that all of you will go to dianahurd.com and give anything that you can. Divert whatever other money you've got, use some, help this woman get into Congress, because these are the kinds of grassroots campaigns that are not getting the establishment support, that are not getting the Wall Street support. It'll only happen if we make it happen. And Diana Hurd, I hope we can help make it happen for you to go to Congress.
Thank you so much for your support.
Any other thing you'd like to say?
I think you've said it all.
Okay. I hope so, and I hope that you got to say it in Congress. All my love to you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, there's nothing that I love more than a cool, hip, and progressive policeman, and that's what we've got right here. I want to introduce you to Lou Vince. He's running in California, District 25. His primary is June 7th. His website is louvince.com, and in just a few minutes, we're going to have a scoop. We're going to have an endorsement from Lou, who he is endorsing for the presidency, but I think you will be able to guess who it is beforehand. Lou Vince, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, Marianne.
You have an interesting background. You are a Los Angeles policeman, and you have been for 21 years, and you also are a veteran. You are a former Marine. So why now do you want to be in the U.S. House of Representatives? And most importantly, once you get there, what you're going to do with it?
Well, quite frankly, I want to use my experience as a common sense cop to go to Washington and help build a better America for all of our children. I've got 4 kids of my own, all under 11, so I'm very busy, but I think it's important that we build a better America for them.
As a policeman, what do you personally think are the root causes of crime in America?
The root causes of crime are opportunity. I mean, I like to say that nothing stops. I've been on the streets of Los Angeles for 21 years, and I can tell you unequivocally that the only thing that stops a bullet, stops violent crime, is a job. You can give someone whatever, any kind of intervention you want, but they need a job, they need opportunity, they need to see a path out to stop the cycle of poverty and the cycle of crime.
It's so important that we hear people such as yourself talking like this, because there is a real stereotype now of the kind of police officer who doesn't care. And that's really bad for America. If we shift from thinking of our police officers as what I do believe the vast majority of them are, true public servants here to serve and protect, to people who are behaving in ways that really actually scare people, and people start throwing around words like police state. What is your sense of what's happening among police and in that system?
Well, I think police officers are seeing a sea change going on right now. Sure, the media is shining an unflattering light, to be honest with you, on police incidents. But what you have right now is you have younger or newer police officers coming into the profession. We're requiring more education. They're more open-minded. They've had more experiences. and there's starting to be a change in the departments where these newer cops are now becoming the trainers, and they're training the newer cops that are coming on. So we're moving to a more professionalized policing, I believe.
Now, wanting to go from being a police person on the street to actually being a U.S. congressperson, I assume what you want to do is to address the more systemic issues that underlie so many of these problems that you see up close and personal.
Right. I can give you an example of one of the things that I see. Sometimes we're on the streets of Los Angeles and we were at a call or something like that, and there'll be 7 or 8 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And you'll hear from some of my peers sometimes, and or from other people that, well, they all need to get a job so they can get an apartment. Well, that's just tired Republican talking points. And quite frankly, they all have jobs, but they're all making minimum wage, working full time, and they're not able to support themselves or live in a high cost of living area like Los Angeles. So I want to see the minimum wage get raised to $15 an hour and then indexed for inflation. So we don't have people that work full time, sometimes with 2 jobs, aren't able to take care of their family and living on top of each other.
Right.
That's not the America that I want to see.
Right, and in addition to that, I'm sure you'd like to see them have universal health care and to be able to go to free public colleges in the universities. Hint, hint.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, I work full time. My wife works full time. She's also a police officer. So we make a fair living, to be honest with you. But I look at my kids and I look at paying for college, and that's like a cloud that follows me around. I don't know how we're going to pay for that.
So that's a perfect segue to your endorsement. You endorse who for the presidency?
Jeb. Just elect Bernie. That's where I'm going.
Of course.
Just elect Bernie. I support Bernie Sanders.
Well, when I think of Bernie Sanders in the White House and people like yourself in Congress, then I do have hope for America. Now, I also know, we've talked here at the summit, Lou, about the fact that the political revolution is going on in 2 realms. It's going on in the country, obviously, but it's also going on within the political parties. And you are an example of what we would call the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party, the real progressives within the party, not receiving the support of the establishment leadership. And that's why these primaries are so important. Anything you want us to know, and you want the people of your district to know about that?
Well, in my district, we have that exact thing going on. It's textbook. What we have is Washington trying to send a representative to us here in California's 25th district. When what should be happening is we should be sending the representative to Washington.
Well said.
So we've got a hand-picked person that they picked based on his ability to raise money. And I don't begrudge him for that. Quite frankly, I'm a little jealous that he could raise all that money. But he just moved into the district. He doesn't know about the district. He's not supported by the activists. And we have a pre-endorsement vote for the California Democratic Party. I got 82% of the vote, which should have guaranteed that I got the endorsement. But instead, he did a little trickery through the rules and had it pulled. So now we're going again to have the endorsement again. And it's Washington imposing their will on the local people, and I won't stand for it. I was asked to drop out. I won't stand for it. I will fight, and I will win this. What in Congress? That's really what it is. It's about conflict. It's about reaching consensus, working with other people that may have different views than you. That's what I do all day, every day. And I think I can do that. I also think, as a veteran and as a police officer, and with my background, and as a progressive, I have a certain, I don't know if credibility is the right word, but a certain credibility that I'll be able to bring to talk on issues like gun violence. Because I've seen it. It's not some arbitrary thing that I've studied in a textbook. I heard about in a class. It's something I've experienced. So I think I'll have that credibility that will help get me what I need to get done. We have to keep fighting. I mean, I've done all my life. I've been trained to run towards problems, and that's what I'm going to do here. And I might run and bang my head against the wall multiple times, but eventually we're going to get through, and we're going to get things changed, and we're going to make things happen. We just can't sit back and let be somebody else's problem or say that we're being overwhelmed. You have to keep fighting. And yeah, it's going to take many steps, but every journey begins with the first step. The first step is getting to Congress, so I can do that.
Is the biggest problem that you have, or the biggest challenge that you have as a candidate, raising the money to be able to be competitive with the establishment-backed candidate?
Absolutely. That is the single biggest challenge. And that's really the establishment candidate's only counter to my candidacy is always, it's not about me, it's not about my campaign, it's always about, well, look at how much money he's raised. And it's been respectable, it just hasn't equaled his amount. So it's been a tough hill to climb. So if anybody's watching this, I'd love for them to go to my website and make a contribution.
And through our page, of course. Now,
Yes.
You're in California 25. Tell me exactly where that is.
The 25th is northern Los Angeles County. It includes Simi Valley, which is in Ventura County, the northern San Fernando Valley, which is Los Angeles, Valencia, Castaic area, and then Santa Clarita, Palmdale, Lancaster. It's actually the last district in Los Angeles and Ventura County that we haven't flipped from red to blue. You know, who would have thought that in 2016 we'd still have a Republican-held congressional seat in Los Angeles County?
Yeah, it's sort of hard to believe. We need to change that. And I hope you change that. And if I can do anything to help you, please let me know. California should kick ass in Congress in every possible way, and I'd love to see you be part of that movement.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.